Hello and welcome to the sixth Aragon community meeting. Today we're trying out this new format where we have integrated the Aragon HQ with the community meeting. So this time we won't be doing presentations like we used to do in the Aragon HQ meetings. We have done write-ups from each team member that are posted in the Aragon wiki, as well as the Aragon blog, where we have a blog post with the write-ups. So that's called Team Update November, if you want to look it up. And so for the agenda, we're going to briefly discuss the write-ups, take questions. And today we also have two special guests joining the meeting. Hello to Chris and Joel from Placeholder Capital. And we'll have an announcement at the end of the meeting. So let's get on with the agenda. I'm going to let the Team Spain start.
Yeah, I think we can, before just going into the write-ups, it would be cool if you, Chris and Joel, want to introduce themselves to our community right now.
Sure. You want to start?
Sure. So we're Chris and Joel, as we thank you for the introduction, and we're Placeholder is a venture firm based in New York City, and we specialize in working with decentralized information networks coordinated by a token. And our main focus is to do deep work with crypto teams particularly on aspects like governance and crypto economics. And we are an investment firm. We get involved with teams early on, and we try to spend a lot of time with core developers and really build close partnerships and support the teams however we can, not only with capital. And I'll let Chris introduce himself in a little bit. I come from a venture capital firm, another venture capital firm here in New York called Union Square Ventures, which is where we are today, where I spent the last 3 years working on crypto and developing the crypto thesis.
And I'm coming out from a firm called ARC Investment Management, where I led ARC's crypto efforts for about 3 years. ARC bought into Bitcoin in 2015 as the first public fund manager to do so, and led that effort and got tired of fighting against Wall Street, I suppose, to recognize the importance of crypto, and formed a friendship with Joel early on in 2016. And we were collaborating around how tokens were going to, reshape sort of the blockchain ecosystem, but also the broader architecture of the world. So that brought us together. I think one last important thing to emphasize around Placeholder is we've set ourselves up as a venture capital firm, which means we have committed capital behind us. And that means that no matter what the market does, we don't really care. We're not trading. That's not what we do. We come in, as Joel said, build long-term relationships and really do everything we can to help the teams and friends that we choose to support.
Thanks a lot for that intro, both Chris and Joel. You can follow both Joel and Chris. Chris is Siborniski on Twitter, and for Joel, he's not very active on Twitter, but he has an amazing blog. A lot of different pieces, which is joel.mn, which, by the way, is an amazing domain. Nice. So for now, we will switch to just talk about the write-ups and this month, and later on in the end of the call, we will talk about a special announcement today that we are doing together with Placeholder, both with Joel and Chris. Cool. So in regards to the write-ups, we had a few questions by community members, just asking about the state of things this month. So Tato, if you want to proceed going through them.
Yes. So let's start with some questions for the AMA. This is coming from the subreddit AMA thread. Is Aragon ID being designed to be Sybil resistant? How are you thinking about other ID systems or identity systems that are being designed? Examples being Uport, Civic, for example. Will they be usable in Aragon too? So who wants to take this, I guess? Jorge or?
I can take this briefly. So basically, we call it Aragon ID, but it's basically just a way for us to allow our users to very easily be handed out one identifiable name, and we use the DNS for that, and we just give out subdomains of this domain that we have called aragonid.eth. So people in like 2 clicks can get an ENS name in the form of like jorge.aragonid.eth, which maps to their Ethereum address. So people, when instead of seeing their address, they will be able to see, okay, this is Jorge in the Aragon ID system. The good thing about this is like we're starting with a very simple system, but we will be able to transition to using like Uport or other more complex identity systems that map to another Ethereum address.
Yeah, regarding civil resistance, I don't know if Luke has any comments on if in the future, because I know we are looking into that, and Luke is specifically looking into some governance research that may enable some civil resistance for some governance schemes. So I don't know if he wants to talk a little bit about that, or even kind of unrelated by the progress relating to the Aragon Labs proposals that he's been working on in the GitHub repo.
Sure, yeah, I can actually speak to both really quick, but I don't want to spend too much time because I know there are other questions. The Aragon ID thing, I don't think has any sort of Sybil resistance baked into it. But as Jorge was mentioning, if down the line people want to embed like a Uport gateway first, where they have to have some sort of identity, that could provide Sybil resistance. Or organizations could just choose to rely on some other identity validation mechanism as part of their organization's governance structure. So you don't necessarily have to have an organization structure that just allows people to buy tokens anonymously. You could have an organization that requires some sort of identity validation, or be like invite only, and you can still use that to run governance. In terms of the Aragon Lab stuff, we've been exploring a number of different kind of governance mechanisms, some of which require Sybil resistant identity. If you would talk about like quadratic voting or something like that, you need to have some sort of Sybil resistant marker to avoid people just voting from multiple accounts and undermining the system. So that'll be important long term.
Yeah, and just as a further point, we built like in the system. Brett could talk a little bit more about like how we made the Aragon ID system secure, and in order for it not to be tricked, like not to be problems when the ENS is eventually upgraded. But we built in some mechanism that we can turn on in case like the names are starting to be used for spam, or like people are starting to squad names. We could require people to burn a certain amount of a token, in this case AMT, in order to get the name. At the beginning we will make it free, but if it like starts being used in this way, we will put that up, and people will need to burn a certain amount of tokens for it.
Okay. So the next question is also from AMA thread. How can I explain Aragon network token to people who don't believe in crypto, like my wife? I don't know, how do you believe in crypto? It's kind of a magical thing and exists in this realm with unicorns and stuff. Oliver, you want to answer?
No, I don't know what to say. I'm a bit flabbergasted. I don't understand what's going on here. Who did this? Carlos Matters, Bitcoin, or what is it called? Oh my god. Can someone else take it?
Yeah. Well, Team Spain looks ready.
Well, we can jump in with how we explain Aragon to people and Aragon network token to people. The way we see it is Aragon is a governance platform, and what the Aragon network does is create a decentralized jurisdiction. So we describe Aragon as Delaware for the internet. In the real world, when you create a company or you create an organization, for example, in the United States, you may create something called a limited liability company, which is the most common business type. There's also C Corps and B Corps and all kinds of different kinds of organizations, foundations, and so on. You incorporate in a particular jurisdiction, in a state or in a country, and then that company is regulated or governed by the laws of that state or that country. In Aragon, the Aragon network is a decentralized jurisdiction where organizations set up on Aragon are governed by the Aragon network. And what the Aragon network token does is it provides you with not only a participation right in this network where you by holding the token, one of the things that you can do is set up your organization and participate within the governance of the Aragon network, but it also ends up being the mechanism or the tool that you use to vote on things like changes to the regulations in the jurisdiction and so on. So the way we explain the value of the Aragon network token is precisely in that ability to participate in the governance of this jurisdiction. And if you believe that there is, as we do, that this is a very important platform and a very important thing to go build out, given that all of the structural tensions and complications of real world jurisdictions, then it turns out that the ability to participate in the governance of this platform is very important and we believe very valuable.
That's a great answer, Joel. Thanks. I'm going to use that later. So, well, okay, we can take the next question if no one else wants to comment further on this. So, when moons, sir?
I can answer this again. I do this pretty much every meetup, or not meetup, meeting. So we don't know when moon. We don't speculate that much in like coins. We might do personally, but as a project, we don't necessarily speculate in coins, and we don't know when it's going to moon. We don't know what moon is. We don't give it investment advice. And there's no way to know for sure either way. So yeah, I guess that's the standard answer at this point.
I kind of have an idea of when moon. When it's dark out, if you look into the sky, as long as there's not a new moon where there's no moon in the sky, there's usually a moon, and that is when moon. Sorry, that was cheesy, but it's a bad question.
Yeah, but an awesome answer. Okay, this question also comes from the live chat. How will you deal with real-world regulations if your network is inherently at odds with it? Just want to say that we operate in the real world, even if we use the internet for operating, but I guess this is a reference to traditional jurisdictions. So how will you deal with the regulations if the network is at odds with those?
Well, I think for a lot of the operations and a lot of the users that we want to target, especially during Q1 or Q2 next year, for them, they are either token holders in blockchain projects, which are a new kind of organisms which are not even regulated in the sense that there is not a figure, like a legal figure, that is like a blockchain project run by token holders, right? So in that sense, it's not that they are at odds with regulation, it's that it's something that is more advanced than the current like regulation or the current like legal frameworks in like normal, jurisdictions in the world. So we are trying to build for that. We're trying to build for organizations that are native to this new world. And for the organizations that are not, then there are multiple ways to try to fix that gap. And so there are ways in which you can try to apply these regulations to the blockchain. And I mean, we're obviously a blockchain project, and so we have to comply with some regulations, and we are living that pain ourselves. Like, it's very hard to translate these all laws into what we are doing. Like, if you explain to the accountants that, you know, you received some tokens in an airdrop, for example, they will be like, what? Like, it's a like magic internet money or something. So I guess the answer is we have multiple initiatives to help fix that gap, but in the short term, the projects that are gonna like take advantage of Aragon are projects that are native to this new kind of organization. And I don't know if Maria, do you want to jump in and talk a little bit about Aragon Proxy and the things that we are doing in that aspect?
Yeah. So right now we are in a special moment where, for example, project like us, we do have a foundation that is incorporated in a specific jurisdiction. In our case, is Estonia, and we do have to comply with those regulations. However, in the future, we want to become, and we will become, a decentralized autonomous organization. So it's a working process, and for that, we are trying to look into different solutions. One of those solutions is something that we call Aragon Proxy, because in the future, decentralized autonomous organizations are going to be willing to interact with the real world. And so one thing that we are trying to come up with is with a special company that will be compliant to a specific jurisdiction, and that company can be the one that will be contracting with contractors in the physical world, but that company will be the one dealing with the decentralized autonomous organization. But this is work in progress. We are still building the architecture of the project. Also, we want to come up with guidelines for specific jurisdictions. We are not a team of advisors. We are not legal advisors. We are software developers, but we see that we would like to help a little bit the projects using Aragon. So we will come up with certain guides that will help projects to deal with the different problems that they could have in certain jurisdictions. Of course, we like I said, we are not a team of lawyers, and we cannot know or advise what would happen or what are the problems that the projects will face in every jurisdiction. But we will like to help a little.
All right. Well, this isn't a question, but saludos desde España. We love Aragon. We are now about 18 minutes into the meeting, and we actually do not have any more questions at this time. So this has been a short one so far. I'm just going to see if there's any questions popping up after the answer by Maria in the live chat. But,
so, okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So no more questions. Are we done in terms of community questions?
Well, looks like the AMA part is done. We do not have any more questions. So let's move on to the next segment. You want to talk about that, Luis?
Yeah. Well, I think prior to going into the announcement just yet, I would like to just go through some questions or some highlights that I had for the write-ups this month. So I wanted to ask about Aragon ID, but I think that's already asked. So I would like to kind of, just ask both you, Tatu, and John about John, actually, about his implication in Aragon and having him on the team.
Well, hello, Luis.
Hey, John. So, what are you gonna do at Aragon? I mean, I know, but like, it's for you to tell the community.
Yeah, absolutely. well, I'm super jazzed to be here. For the folks who don't know me, I'm John Light. I gave a little bit of an update in the write-up that's been shared prior to this community meeting call about what I did with the Aragon team last week when we met up in Helsinki together. I was at the meetup, and we also worked on a couple of projects in person together out of an Airbnb in Helsinki, which was really fun. But I have the honor and pleasure to be taking Tatu's previous role as community lead, and he is now transitioning to a director of communications role. So I'm going to be doing a lot of what Tatu's been doing for the past 6-7 months or so, as well as working on a bunch of new ideas for how to engage with the community, grow the community, support the community in the growth of the Aragon network, and post-launch after Aragon goes live on mainnet. So we're talking like meetups, we're talking interactive demos and other like online hangouts with the community. We're talking potentially like hackathons and other ways that the community can get involved in supporting the Aragon software and the growth of the Aragon network. Creating distributed organizations for many different purposes. This is like distributed autonomous organizations is kind of one of the most exciting use cases for advanced smart contracts to me. And so I'm really excited to see what people can do with a tool like Aragon that makes it super easy to set up and run one of these kinds of organizations.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that, John. I think right now we can, well, first of all, thanks to everyone who's listening, and that's John, that's the new community lead. So for the community, I think it's very important to just see your face and meet you this first time. Yeah. Nice. After this, I think we can switch to the announcement we've been planning to do during this call. I think it's the first announcement that we actually do in a community meeting, like in purpose. We usually kind of say things in the community meeting because we're so transparent, and then kind of announce them later. But in this case, it's a very important announcement for us. We've been thinking for a lot of time how we can help back to the community and how we can help back to the ecosystem that has, in the first place, empowered us to build Aragon. So in our case, Aragon is like a year and a month old, and we couldn't, have built it, or right now we are still building it, but we couldn't do that because without an open source software and without the awesome work of a lot of people, from the guy that worked on Linux or the guy that worked on Git to Sudoshi and to then Vitalik and to then a bunch of different people all around the world who have been helping on creating awesome software and releasing it basically for free, and also free not only in, you can get it with no cost, but also free as in freedom. And so we want to thank everyone. And we are seeing this trend of a lot of value accumulating in the protocol layer. And I think Joel was one of the first ones to predict that back in 2014, like in the Bitcoin days. But now we are seeing this other trend, which is that this value is accumulating on the protocol layer, but then somehow we are falling into the tragedy of the commons scenario, which is a scenario that we wanted to avoid having a blockchain in the first place, in which a lot of development is being created on top of these blockchains, on top of these protocols. But then there are not that many people working on the fundamental layers of technology, working on the fundamental layers of the protocol itself, or the developer tooling, which is at the end what enables developers, such as, for example, the developers that we are in Aragon, to create new tools. So as a way to give back to the community and as a way to basically empower people to create this sort of research and also build this kind of very, protocols and tools and, developer tools as well that empower this whole system, we are creating and opening alongside with the placeholder guys who are helping us program that is called Aragon Nest, because Aragon's logo is basically an eagle, and we hope that thanks to the nest, a lot of eggs will grow and a lot of projects will be nurtured then. And we are very excited about kickstarting this grants program. And I think I would love for both Chris and Joel to talk a little bit about the thought process behind it and how you guys are helping make it a reality.
Great, thanks. And we're excited to be helping with this because the Aragon community is one of the most vibrant, I would say, in the crypto space. Really the thinking is there's a lot of tooling and different functionality that we see can be built, that you guys see can be built, that the community sees can be built. And when we think about what the money that has been raised in different, sure we call them ICOs or ICOs, but just in these funding processes, the capital that is raised is really capital for the network, right? And there's been a lot of conversation around, how the governance around that capital works. And Aragon has very clearly, with transparency.aragon.one and just different things that you all have been doing, very, very transparent and open with the community about how that capital is being used. And so employing it in a grants program to support developers that want to contribute to the Aragon platform feels very natural. And so for us, what we've been brainstorming around a lot is what is the best way to do this, right? And this is where we want feedback from the community about, how the community feels this program would be most effective, because, on one hand, you can set up different programs that do give out money but aren't all that effective in terms of achieving, the deliverables that you want. And so we want to be disciplined in this process and really encourage the right people who want to build serious things around Aragon. We're in the later stages of formalizing things, and more of that will come to bear around the launch of Aragon's mainnet. I don't know how much we want to get into details, Luis, before we do that. Did you want to add anything sort of philosophically around the grants program?
Well, the other thing to add is that this is also an experiment and an exploration in how to bring together a community of third-party developers to work as we talked about on the core protocol layers and on the fundamental layers of technology. And it is a really interesting and challenging problem because we're confronting a bunch of new issues for the first time, and designing something that works is something that will take trial and error and will evolve. But the key thing here is that you've got the Aragon team, the core developer team, but in order for Aragon to be successful, that can't be the only team working on Aragon, and that can't be the only group of people working on the technology. And so the way we're thinking about it is that the foundation has a mandate, an implicit mandate to build a developer community and build a base of developer support and not concentrate a lot of the developer power in a single organization. So in addition to building a community, in addition to building the right tools, I think one of the main objectives, or at least outcomes, or one of the great outcomes of a successful grants program would be to build that base of third-party developers, independent developers who know Aragon very deeply as a result of working very closely with the code. And we believe that over time, that will ensure that Aragon always remains decentralized and always remains open to the public and always remains governed by the community and not just by a small group of people.
That's well, I think that was an awesome primer on why we're doing the grants program. And regarding the details, the specific details, I think we can probably announce them later next week. Tato has been working some announcement, like for the blog. So we're looking for developers. We're looking for developers that want to build tooling not only for Aragon but also for Ethereum in general, and that want to target from very academic problems like Ethereum scaling or like multi-party computation to very practical things like building actual Aragon apps. So we're trying to use gather a lot of interest, and we are going to involve the community as a way to first of all gather interest for different things that we should give out grants to, and also let the community decide what are the finalists or what are the projects that should actually get the grants. So we plan to involve the community and the AMT holders in that process as well. And I think that's it from my side. I don't know if Chris or Gerald have anything else to say about it.
Yeah, I think, and this just goes in line with everything Aragon does, but we really do want community feedback on all parts of this process, and specifically why Placeholder is getting involved with this. It's no secret that we're fans of everything that has been built and the vision for this project, and we want to get behind it and offer value add where we can. As investors and people that sort of structure, say, incentives towards accomplishing certain projects, and projects specifically in this case that are aligned with the Aragon and Ethereum vision, but really looking for as much community feedback as people want to give.
And we hope that we can provide our experience as investors and our experience in selecting teams to create basically, startup-like incentives eventually for the development of applications on top of these new platforms that we're building. So the reason we believe that we can add some value in the design and in the execution of this program is in tapping into our experience in selecting teams and interviewing teams and evaluating proposals and ideas, and really get at building an ecosystem of independent developer teams around Aragon.
And as Chris mentioned, the community is going to be a key part of the whole process. It's not only work from us, from the team, and from a Placeholder. The community is going to have a strong voice on what projects we will be funding.
Yeah, and Chris and Joel have a long experience in evaluating different kind of crypto projects. They've been doing this for a living for a while. So their experience is really invaluable to us, and getting feedback from them as well as the community is what brings this whole grant program together.
Yeah, I also want to kind of remember how our relationship started. So I remember meeting with Joel when he was still at Union Square Ventures, and as he said, I think a couple months ago or something like that, that was the times where we thought that everything would be timestamped into the blockchain or something like that, because I was working with my last company, Stampery, back in the day, and that was before all the token frenziness. And so we met there, and then after some time, we also gathered together in FCon, which was the developer conference that happened around, I think it was the beginning of the year, February this year, and that was before our token sale. And Jorge and me had an idea of what we wanted to do with Aragon in terms of not only the core platform, but also the network, and how we can actually provide services in a network scale that help accelerate the adoption of decentralized organizations. But we didn't quite crystallize that. And then we met with you all for dinner, and we started talking about how random people in Reddit could work together and kind of be in the same digital jurisdiction, whatever. And thanks to him, I feel like the idea for the Aragon network as a digital jurisdiction kind of crystallized and became to be. So I sometimes introduce him as the godfather of the Aragon network for that reason. And you know, I feel the admiration is mutual for both Chris and Joel. But I just wanted to like give that small kind of bit of information, like funny story about how we like things happened and how the Aragon network came to be.
Thank you guys. You're much too kind.
Aragon history.
Aragon history, yeah. Cool. Well, that's whether we have any other items on the agenda. I think this has been a great call, and we'll release more info on the grants program next week and over the course of the next few weeks.
Yeah. Thanks for joining, Chris and Joel.
Thanks for having us.
Thank
This
you.
has been awesome.
Yeah. So thanks for everyone also watching the live stream. The recording will be available as usual on YouTube. Since we moved to this new format of these meetings, the next one will be in a month. So 5th of January next year, actually. So this is the last meeting of this year.
Oh.
Wow, so then I guess this reconvenes in 2018.
Well, until next year then.
See you next year.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.